Hey, thank you. Yeah, I'm Lindsay. You all look so familiar because I've been stalking your work for like a week. So I was just talking about, like, I saw the Tony person that you interviewed, and I saw the dancing stuff. So yeah, it's nice to meet you guys officially in person. So I'm an anchor at WNDU. I anchor our noon broadcast, which is a little bit newer for me. I actually just started in that role literally like 2 weeks ago. So before I jump in, and you can see, right, if I get in your way,
just want to move over there.
If you want, you do your thing. This is like very informal. I want you guys to just be able to hop in. I'm not your mom. You can interrupt me and jump in, okay? So I want this to be beneficial, not just me talking at you. So please, if I ask or say something that you want more clarification, jump in and let me know. So I just graduated from college almost a year ago, so I'm really not that much older than all of you. And I graduated from a school that's similar in size. It's called Anderson University. It's about 2 hours south near Indianapolis. I'm getting some head nods. Okay, so you know this exists. So really similar in class dynamic as well. Really small private school as well. So I just graduated last May, and when I was in college, I did 3 internships. One was at this really tiny little place near my hometown in Cincinnati called TV Middletown. Then I interned at Fox 18, half news, half sports, which is in Cincinnati. And then I did another internship my senior year at WTHR in Indianapolis, which was our sister station to WNDU, which is how I heard about WNDU. So when I was in college, beyond interning, I launched my very own TV channel, which was called Raven Watch, which just covered sports, and I'm a big sports junkie, so it was all about sports, and that's really how I got my foot in the door, was because I kind of had made a name for myself in college, launching this whole show and knowing nothing before I did it. So when we're talking about your kind of initiative to do this late night show, I definitely understand where you're coming from, because a lot of it's trial and error, right? Like, you don't know what it's gonna look like until you do it, and that was how I basically did the same thing with the show that I launched, and it's still around today. Obviously different anchors, because I'm no longer in college. So once I got to WNDU, I graduated college, literally moved here the next morning, and started 2 days later. So it was a whirlwind. If I give you any advice, if you don't do that, take like a week off before like starting your job, because it was just a little bit crazy. And when you take your first job, you have terrible PTO, personal time off. So I would really not recommend doing that. I would take a couple weeks before coming. But I started my job, and then started off working. I think my schedule was Wednesday through Monday, so my weekends were Tuesday. Let me think what that'd be. I guess my weekends were Tuesday and Thursday. They weren't even back to back. Then I switched, and my weekends became Wednesday, Thursday. So with that, I was working the morning show, the night show, and weekends, and it was all very jumbled. And then a couple weeks later, I was asked to start anchoring our Sunday morning show, and so I started that schedule. Then I had Friday, Saturday weekends. And then after a couple weeks, it was announced we were going to be launching a 4 o'clock show at WNDU, and I was asked to co-anchor that show alongside our living legend, Maureen McFadden, who's one of our promo pics for the new show that came out. And so once she retired, they hired her replacement. They wanted her to kind of get the exposure of having that own show to kind of get to know the viewers better. And so I moved to the noon show, which is where I am right now. So I've had a lot of different experiences. When I was in college, I was just interning and shadowing everywhere. So my resume was a lot longer than it probably is right now. So there are a couple of things that I really want you guys to actually tangibly get from what I'm talking about. So in this business, as I'm sure you all know, we're all note takers, so I have some notes to make sure that I hit some of the highlights, because I got some of your questions, and I want you guys to get the most from this. So here are a couple of things that I feel like right now it's important for you guys to really get, because right now you want to get ahead of everybody else. This business is competitive, it's cutthroat. What is going to put you ahead of everyone else trying to get the same job? So these are some things I really feel like is so important. The first is interning. I interned 3 times, and it wasn't just about putting it on my resume. Was that awesome? Yes, it showed I took initiative, it showed I did something when I was in college, but mostly it's because, one, you find out what job you hate and what job you love. You get to interact with someone who's, if you're interested in meteorology, you get to shadow a meteorologist every day, ask them the questions that maybe you don't have the access to get answers to when you're just not interning. And also, if you find out something that you don't like, it's just as helpful as finding out what you do like. So I would say intern. And that was really helpful in making these connections, because my second point, networking is everything. So I interned at Fox 19, and I did just a summer term, and so I just honestly was there for 8 weeks. I was taking a trip to China at the time, so I was only there for like a really quick like season, if you will. And I still talk to our sports director in Cincinnati almost to this day. Like, he keeps up with me. I send him texts like, "You're never gonna believe what happened at this Notre Dame game." And that's just such a good connection, because I have a friend who's trying to go to Cincinnati, and I said, "Oh, here I have a contact." And that happens a lot. Networking is so important, because it really will pay off in the long run. Even people that you met in college, please network with me so I can help be an asset to you guys as well. But networking is so critical, because as you want to move around in the business, knowing someone that's there or has been there, it really is crazy about how much networking plays into this business. At first, when I was like hearing about this, I was like, I'll send my resume out. Like, no, you want to develop a relationship, and don't just reach out when you want something. Try to check in with those people. Shooting Professor Richardson an email like, "Hey, how's it going? This is my latest thing," because you never know when you're going to need something, or you need a reference letter or whatever. That really does play into that. Another thing about working in TV, and I'm assuming you guys kind of interested in going into TV for the most part? Okay, so one thing that you really want to understand is TV markets. And I knew like nothing about this, so I thought I'd take some time to go over this. So TV markets are arranged 1 to, I think it goes down to like close to 200 maybe. The top 3 markets will never change, because market size is determined by the viewers. More viewers means more money. And that's not just how much money is in the area, but how much money you will make, which is really important. So I think I kind of wrote down a formula like more viewers equals a larger market size, which means more money. So that's really important, because the top 3 are never going to change. Number 1 is New York, number 2 is LA, number 3 is Chicago. And those will never change, but down kind of lower, closer to, I don't know, the hundreds or beyond, those will kind of shift a little bit as people move in and just kind of fluctuate. So right now, I think South Bend is at 96. I think when I got here, we were at 91 or 92. So it kind of changes a little bit. And that's just kind of important, because you're never going to be able to start in Chicago, right? Like, that's just obvious. Like, we're never going to be able to compete with those people. And I think a really big takeaway that is like, understand that there's not a normal. You can't start somewhere. There's no normal path in this business, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But I wouldn't worry too much about market size. I went to a conference in Nashville for like wannabe sports reporters, and they said, "Oh, if you want to have a good career, your first job will be in a market above 100." I mean, I don't think that's really true. I think it's just get your foot in the door, learn a ton, and you'll work your way up. And that's part of it too, is usually you have to work your way up, which means you move a lot, because you want to keep moving up in the ranks and making more money. And that's something I didn't always understand, but usually you sign 2-year contracts, 2 or 3-year contracts, so you could technically be moving like every 2 years, which is a lot, right? If you have a relationship or you want to be close to family, like, that's a lot. So that's something that's important to kind of understand a little bit as you're looking at market sizes and what that means. And you can literally Google TV market size and it'll pull up that list. And I think it goes down to 200. So there's really small stations, there's really big stations, and I think where we're at right now, like a 96, an 80, a 70, you can kind of go anywhere in there. You get a lot of experience no matter where you are. So I wouldn't worry too much about the number. I obsessed over it. I printed out the list and hung it on my wall, and I would highlight like the stations I wanted to go to, and I look back and I think, like, you can't anticipate where you're going to go, right? You got to have a little faith, like God knows where you're headed. You don't. Just kind of go with the opportunity that you really have a good gut feel on. So that's definitely a huge part of the job, is understanding TV markets, because as you move up, you'll want to learn more about that. The next thing is building a strong reel. Do you guys all have reels? Okay, so you're probably crafting your reel right now, thinking about it. What year are you guys?
I'm a senior.
Senior?
Junior. I'm a senior. I'm not going into this business
Okay.
yet.
Not yet, okay.
Yeah,
Not yet.
so one thing is, there's just 2 video classes, and this is the only TV one, so
Okay.
they're all communication majors.
Okay.
Some may be going into marketing or public relations, some may be interested in TV. So as far as, like being a senior or something in broadcasting, it's not quite how it works here.
Okay.
But that's definitely something to keep in mind for the future, of thinking about what we might do to create a
because I'm
reel.
sure if you're not interested in TV, like, you'll have like a portfolio, right? Is that yeah. Are you guys interested in TV a little bit? Okay. So as you start to build your reel, it's really important to build a good reel. And I've gone to I've watched so many YouTube videos and things on what I think goes into a good reel. So here are my opinions, but let me just tell you, there is no formula for any of this, okay? There's no one that understands everything about this business, and they say that, they are lying to you. So here's what I've kind of taken. So the length of my reel right now, I think is about 3 minutes and 15 seconds. You want it to be about 3 to 5, and you want to lead with something that's interesting. That's not just you and nothing going on behind you. I think you want to start something that's going to catch their eye. Like, what makes you different? Something that's really important when you're looking at your reel, news directors only watch 15 to 20 seconds. And if they're interested, they'll keep watching, and if not, you're done. That's not a lot of time, right? Like, some of my stand-ups are 15 seconds total. So that's terrifying when it's us, right? Because you're like, I can't express myself and my talent in 15 seconds. So make that first shot count. Make it interesting. Make it something that they're not going to see or like, oh, that's interesting. What are they saying? So always start with something that's really interesting. You want to start the best stuff off the top. So your best clips right in a row. Keep it quick. Don't worry about dissolves. If it's like you have a really long question, just hit the highlights. Just kind of do the first 10 seconds. Show that, you can lay out your story, your lead right away. Don't worry too much about going into the full interview. You want to showcase diversity. So I've seen some of your guys' work. So I know you've done like some sports, some news, some feature type stuff. So that's really awesome because you want to add diversity to your resume and to your reel. You don't want to show that you just do one thing because in this business you want to be adaptable. And I'm not saying the business of TV, I'm saying in any job, right? You want to show like, oh, I can roll with the punches, I can do whatever they throw me into. So try to show that you've done different stuff from, you've done anchoring by yourself. You've done anchoring next to someone. You've been able to be out in the field. You've been able to have a script and not have a script. Try to show that diversity as you're piecing that together to kind of show, I got what's going on. Also, show your personality. Don't worry too much about trying to nail every single line. If there's like a little improv moment that you think was like, oh, that's kind of nice. Like, hey, I look funny. Like, add that. Don't be afraid to make yourself look stupid. And add that creativity because again you want to catch their eye. Like you want to be like, wow, there's something really interesting about her, like I'm going to keep watching. That's so important in this business. And also there's kind of this debate about, do you put packages in your show, like those longer stories? Like I know I watched yours, like your longer piece, like do you put that in there? I don't know. So I have my reel on my YouTube channel and I also have other feature stories that are uploaded. I'm not applying for a job right now, so maybe I'll find out in like a year, like, hey, put it on the end of your reel. But right now I would say just worry about your quick hits and then leave your feature stories on your YouTube channel that they can check out and you can like link to. But maybe in a year when I apply for a job and like, this sucks, then, they don't know and I'll come back and tell you. Okay, so I wanted you guys to see my reel, and I am a news anchor, and I anchor every day, but I still hate watching myself, so this will be really fun. Okay.
Yeah, Alex, that is exactly right. Many remember the 1988 Notre Dame-Michigan game by the field goals made by the Irish and the almost field goal made by the Wolverines. But for one couple I met, it was the start of something far greater than a Notre Dame win. Josh, it has been a heartbreaking scene out here this morning. The Elkhart County Sheriff's Department confirmed the crash happened around 8:30 this morning. They say a semi-truck drifted into the left lane and crashed into a tree, killing the 35-year-old male driver. The three cops are accused of falsifying reports to cover up for Officer Jason Van Dyke, who's been convicted of second-degree murder. 11 national championships, 7 Heisman Trophy winners, and 101 All-Americans. These are just a few of the many accomplishments of Notre Dame football. This university and this team is built on so much tradition, but we all know to really understand this team, it's about understanding its history. We're staying nice and warm, and let me tell you, I gotta have a little peek at this. Is Gunner over here, and Gunner has been at Toys for Tots every single year since he was born. Look at this cute guy, and if you can see his little Christmas socks. So we are having so much fun, aren't we, Gunner? Yeah, we are. The last time Notre Dame and Clemson met, it didn't leave such a good aftertaste for the Fighting Irish. Irish fans have had December 29th circled on their calendars since the moment they heard who Notre Dame would be facing in their first college playoff appearance. But one Irish fan has been waiting for another Notre Dame-Clemson rematch since the day he was born. But one local 14-year-old just found out a college is already offering her money because of her talents, not just in the classroom. News Center 16's Joshua Short introduces us to a young teenager who already has the ball in her court. There's an army of volunteers at Beacon Children's Hospital who are dedicated to giving babies in the NICU the gift of human touch. These 35 volunteers spend countless hours rocking, singing, and loving on little ones they don't even know. They're called Rockers, and they're making a lifelong impact for these children. A local family is grieving the loss of their beloved dog after they say it was killed by 2 pit bulls in their backyard. The rematch of a lifetime for little Jack, and Notre Dame is playing for revenge tomorrow, and they'll definitely have a lot of fans cheering them on, including Jack and his family. What a sweet story.
And there will be no distractions because nobody's expecting.
No one's expecting, so hopefully nothing too crazy will happen. This stadium is going to be packed in just under an hour with Notre Dame fans, but no Notre Dame fan stands out more than Brandon Hardy. He is the definition of a Notre Dame superfan, but his story is even more remarkable. Mo, I sure have, and the parade just passed through here a little bit ago, and that means the week has officially started. And I am joined by someone who is no stranger to the St. John County 4-H Fair. This is Dale Murphy, and this is his 46th year being involved with the fair. And Dale, what has kept you coming back all these years? Chuck and Alex, today is a sensational day, years in the making, for Danny's mom and dad and his high school coach. You probably don't think long and hard about the storm drains on your street, but now as News Center 16's Maria Catanza-Wright reports, you might think twice when you see some in Elkhart County.
A day in the life. So the nice thing about this job, and probably why if you are interested, you're thinking about it, is because no day is ever the same, which is kind of why I like it. I can never see myself sitting at like a desk job every day, so I love this because it's always different. So I was trying to think about how I break down my schedule, and that can be a bit tricky. We are supposed to work 40 hours a week. We work 40 hours a week. We always work more than that. But for the most part, I work 9 to 6. My show is at noon, so I get there around 9:30, and usually I stay till 5:30 or 6. Just depends on the day. If there's a feature I want to cover that's earlier in the morning, I'll come in early and then leave earlier. Vice versa. If I have a story I want to cover that's at 8 o'clock, then I'll just work later. So that kind of depends. And I can talk more about like what my day-to-day looks like, the duties of that. But as I'm moving in and thinking about like the lifestyle, so we are required to work 2 of the 3 winter holidays. So I worked Thanksgiving and New Year's, but I had Christmas off. And then I worked Memorial Day and 4th of July and had Labor Day off. So usually it can be it's hard, right? Because you go from being in a school schedule your whole life, and you like always have holidays, and all of a sudden you're like, this stinks. And that's really tough. That was really hard for me. I'm really close to my family, and I'm from Cincinnati, so I'm like 4 hours away, but it's just enough where you can't, pop back on a day trip. So that was kind of hard for me to adjust to. But holidays, usually you'll work like 2 of the winter holidays, 2 of the summer holidays, or maybe you'll luck out and only work 1. That's not how it worked out for me. But for overtime, that is a huge part of our job. And I would say if you are thinking about going into TV in your interview, I would ask like how they do overtime. We are told we're not allowed to have overtime because when it comes to football season, we work around, so normal work week is 40 hours. I probably work about 60 to 70. I probably work like 10, 12-hour days. And so because game days are on Saturday, I have 1 day off. I have Sunday off. So I get home at like 3 a.m. on Sunday morning, and I'm back at work at 9 a.m. on Monday. So it's really intense. So we try not to have any overtime during the year because everyone who works in sports takes all of the overtime when it comes to football season. So that's part of it too. It's really hard. That's not usually how it is. I'm an anchor working on sports, not soccer and sports. But the sports people can kind of mess with their schedule and take Monday, Tuesday off after a game day where I have to anchor Monday through Friday, so I can't. So that's usually not how it is. I don't want to scare you and you think like I'm going to work 6 days a week and have no life. You might, but I don't think that would be the case. So overtime can play a bit of a role, but you do get like overtime pay. And we're on call. So all of us reporters are on call. We have 5 nights in a row we're on call. We take home our gear, we take home a car, and at any point in the evening they can call you and say, all right, 3 a.m., there's a fire out here, start driving, we'll send you an address, and you hop in the car and go. That stinks. That's the worst part of the job. Yeah.
So like who calls you?
Our producers. There's always at least 1 person in the newsroom at all hours of the night. So our morning producers, the morning show is from like 4:30 to 9 a.m. So that producer gets there at 11 p.m. the night before. So they work 11 to 7, but it's like overnight, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So there's always someone there, and that person you hate because they'll call you, like, get up, like, and you have no idea what it is. You just start driving, like I lay out like clothes by my door, and you just like hop in the car and you can't remember anything. So you just typically say, text me the details and like the address. You just start driving, and when you see the flashing lights, okay, I've arrived. So that's like the worst part of the job. If you're gonna ask me what the worst part of my job is, it's definitely like on call because I love my sleep, so I hate that. I feel this might be interesting, especially because, hey, I know my audience, it's a bunch of girls here. What are the anchor perks, right? So we get free MAC makeup, so all of our makeup is provided. Yep, I know my audience, yes. So we all have free MAC makeup, yeah. So we get like a order like every 2 or 3 months, so all of our makeup is provided. I'm an anchor, this isn't for reporters, but I do have like an anchor contract, so I am sponsored by a local boutique. They provide all my outfits for me. And then we get free haircuts, which is random, but we do get free haircuts, and the anchors get free highlights and color. But I don't highlight or color my hair, so it's not as exciting to me, but I'm trying to save you like a little. It's not like really expensive to yeah. So it's like,
I was wondering now, like, you always look so good.
Yeah, yeah, so,
It can be like
yeah, it's not all me. We
normal.
do our hair and makeup by ourselves, though. We don't like have an artist or something. I wish,
Yeah.
but.
What
yeah.
about when you're like called up in the middle of the night and you look, you know,
Like crap, so I always pack a baseball cap because I'm like, don't look at me. Usually we won't be, so if we don't go live until like 4:30 a.m. So if they get called out at 3, there's a good chance. So I always try to like pack a makeup bag and then like just, you're slapping it. It's like a pig. You're just like throwing stuff on your face. So you have just no concept. It's so early. I think the furthest I've had to drive for like breaking news like that is like I was called out to an hour way up in Michigan for a vehicle fire. That's so, like, we don't do stuff like that anymore. So it was like, what is the point? By the time I got there, it was over, and you're like, now I'm up. You know, you can't go back to bed after that. So there's something. Yeah, literally, like, someone do something in here. Yeah, exactly.
oh, it's going!
Yeah, exactly. So those are some of the perks.
So
the things on fire!
Exactly. So those are some of the perks I thought you guys might want to know. So there's some fun stuff like that. We get like work gear, like coats and polos, and nothing I wear out public. But you know, like it's nice. So there are some perks there. And just covering football, like we do we have a lot of perks. We're so closely tied with Notre Dame, so we do get like a lot of tickets to stuff. So I've gotten like free basketball tickets, free tickets to like shows. Like you're really a part of your community. So I do the noon show now, and we have guests a lot. So for instance, a couple weeks ago, we had a girl come in from a big event, and they were like advertising they had these VIP bags, and she like brought me a bag. So you have some things like that. You're like, this is like pretty cool. So there's some cool things like that. That's not why you do this job, but it's a nice perk. So it's about you know mentioning that. So I wrote down beyond anchoring because I think there's a perception when you're an anchor, like all you do is sit and read. Like I remember my husband was like, oh, it's so easy to be an anchor. You just sit and read all day. And I was like, boy, you know, no, that's not what it is. As an anchor, you do so much more than just anchoring. It's not just that hour-long show. So I'm still a reporter. So even though I anchor every day, I do 3 feature stories a week, and they're only happy stories, so they're great. So they're like all happy, like did a story about a little boy who rides this little motor, like those, you know, like those motorized cars you always wanted, like as a kid. Like like they have one you can like ride back to surgery on. So you like do stories like that are just like the good, you know, feel good stories. So I do those 3 features a week, and then if there's ever like breaking news during the day, I'm usually the one that goes. So for instance, we had some breaking news like a couple days ago, and I was the one that was sent because I'm the only one there. Usually in the middle of the day like that. So we still do. It's not like I just anchor. You're never just a producer. You're never just a director. At a small station like this, you're gonna do a million things. So I definitely do a lot more than just anchoring. So I still do my feature stories, breaking news, and then come football season, I send a report for Notre Dame as well. So a big part of anchoring is ratings. I'm sure you guys have heard like ratings. You know what ratings are. It's how we measure our competition. We are always neck and neck with WSBT. That's usually who we're like trying to compete with the most. So how we measure this is in 4 months out of the year, we look at our ratings. Those are called sweeps months. So let's see if I remember this. It's February, May, July, and November. And those months, if you're paying attention, as like a viewer, you'll notice there's like all these stories that are like advertised for, like this exclusive thing, and you're like, oh wow, it's interesting. It's always happening in February, May, July, and November. That's why, is because we take all of our ratings that month. That's really important for an anchor because that's basically how my job works. My job is based on ratings. They do this thing where they will call random people in the community, like just pick up the phone and dial a number, and they'll call, what's your first name? Caroline. They will literally just random person like, hi Caroline, we come in and watch this tape of our shows and tell us what you think. And you can come in and be like, well, Lindsay's hair is ugly and this person's dialect is this way and I don't like this, but I really like this, whatever. And they take that into consideration. You'd be part of like a focus group. And that's how I keep my job or I don't keep my job. So it's very cutthroat as an anchor. So it's a little bit hard because that's a part of it is they pay attention to like what the community, what your target market thinks of you. You have to translate really well. So I don't worry too much about that, but that is something that you have to kind of keep aware of, is like what your ratings are, and you know, sometimes you're like, wow, my job is in the hands of like someone who knows nothing about the business. Like, you know, hopefully they take that into account, but it is something that you're wanting to get in the nitty gritty of being an anchor. That is something you have to keep track of. So I put Sally. So we, at every station, they'll have their own Sally. Ours is named Sally, but that's who our market, like our target person, like our audience is. So Sally is a middle-aged woman, 35 and older, with kids. She's like middle class. She's educated, but she doesn't have like a master's. Like, this is like literally, we have a poster in our newsroom that says this is our market. This is who every story should be tailored to. So some are called, like I remember at one station it was like Samantha. But Sally is like your target market. So there's like a story that you want to do and you're like, oh, I love hockey and hockey skates. They would be like, well, does Sally care about hockey skates? Probably not. Or yeah, Sally loves hockey skates. And that's how we decide like our content of our stuff. So every market has a Sally, and that's just, you know, that's just part of it. You have to kind of make sure every story that you do appeals to who your market is. And I left this bullet on here, feedback. So no one prepared me for the feedback you would get in this job. So, and I know we're rolling, so I'm going to keep it very G-rated. But I have been called some really horrible things. Like, I've been told I was a hooker, or like that I have no talent and a big mouth. Like, these things that you just, these are strangers who say, like, that dress is ugly, your hair is awful, you say too much. Like, someone said I have a speech impediment. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Like, people are nasty.
Is this just like on Facebook, or is this like...
This is like, I will get emails, I will get, I'm not sure if I hit something on here. I will get emails, Facebook messages is a big one, tweets. Some are like really public, some will send like WNDU as a whole, so all my coworkers will see them. Some are just, you know, adding me, things like that. But this is just something that like, I think as women, like, we need to talk about, because this is good to like know. I wish someone would have told me like, hey, Lindsay, like, be ready for this, because at first I would like get this mean comment and I would go home and I would obsess about it. Like, oh my god, is red not my color? Like, I remember like I didn't wear red for like 2 weeks. It's like, oh my god, like she thinks I look ugly in red. And I would like, every time I call my mom, I'm like, Mom, like this woman told me, and like I just couldn't stop talking about it. I couldn't stop obsessing about it. And like, here's the thing, you do you. Do not worry about what people think, because if it's really that bad, your news director will tell you. And everything else needs to be white noise. But like, let's be real, we're in an industry that's very like surface level at times. And I think I really struggled with like how many people were gonna be so mean and so nasty. And those people exist, but like you can't let them win, because you're never gonna please anyone. And I'm a people pleaser, and I like harmony. I don't want anyone to feel like they're mad at me. But there have been times I've had to respond and say, if you ever say this to me again, like I'm gonna have to block you from like our page, because it's like you can't talk to someone like this. You know, like one time I said, you have like your profile pictures with your daughter. Would you ever say what you're saying to me, like to your daughter? You know, they didn't handle it very well. But like, it's just like, that's part of it. So if I can just give you any piece, and everyone gets it. It's not just anchors. It's like reporters. I mean, it's just any topic. You're gonna get feedback. It doesn't even matter if you're in news, right? Like, people are just nasty, and they take to social media, and it's so easy to find the stories that people are upset about. Like, it sounds like a dream job doing these features like that are only happy. But it's sometimes hard to find things that people are happy about. Like, everyone jumps on social media to complain, but it's harder to find, like, oh, what are the good things happening, you know? So just, I wonder if I can give you any advice, it'd be on the lookout for some feedback, because that's usually pretty terrible. Okay, so I want to make sure I have your list of questions, too. So I want to really fast before I go into this, talk about my day-to-day duties. I know some of you guys have asked about my role. So usually I get to the station by, like, 9:30, settle in, check my emails. I'm in charge of scheduling all the noon guests, like the Luna Fest that I basically stole from you, apparently. So I schedule all of our noon guests, and I schedule our feature stories, the 3 feature stories, and then I have to read scripts, and then I have to write all of my copy, and then I'm sent out on breaking news. So it's a very like busy day. So by 10 o'clock, I know I need to be reading scripts for our noon show. By 11, I start to kind of get ready. And then I have from 11 to 12, I'll get ready and then make a room from like 11 to 11:30, and then I'll run back in the newsroom to read if there's any breaking news, if any scripts have changed. And then right after the show, which gets off air like 12:30, I try to eat. This is a field, I actually wrote this in my notes to say, like I literally put it in like all capitals, like you do not eat ever. Like it's really hard to eat in this field because we're just always like going. So I have like a lot of, everything's in a bag that I can like eat in the car. But usually like after I get off the air, I'll start making phone calls. You're just always thinking ahead. You're always like, what's my feature next week? What's my next noon guest? You're just always kind of working on a schedule that's like, you know, futuristic. So I have a Google Calendar on my phone. I have 2 paper calendars at my desk, a desk one and one that hangs. Then I have a whiteboard one in the newsroom that I schedule my guests on. Then I have another whiteboard that I double check that me and my producer can like look at. So you always are operating by a calendar. It seems like a lot, but you remember like syllabus day, where like sit down, like your teacher's going through everything you have to do this semester, and you're just like, oh my god, there's so much. Like you're just like, I'm never gonna do this, right? It isn't that, like you get in your rhythm and you don't think about it. It's like driving a car. But I wanted to make sure I mentioned like your day-to-day is kind of different, because if you don't have a story, then you're able to edit or you're able to go out on something. But it's like some days I end up shooting 3 stories and I don't edit at all, and then the next day I edit all the things I did. So it kind of does vary a little bit, but you know, just depends on the day. That's the best part about this job, is never the same day twice. So I wrote kind of go the extra mile. What are some things that like I really feel like are gonna like set you guys apart as you start searching for jobs in any career? The first one I would say is like take risks. Like I always, when I got into the field, I was so embarrassed to like be that reporter, like sprawled out on the ground, you know, like trying to, like I was always like, oh no, I'm in my cute shoes, like I don't want to look like weird. You gotta like get rid of yourself, like in yourself, like you do so many embarrassing things when you're in television, like especially for live shots. Like I've done live shots with like those inflatable things you jump into a pool, like the big flamingo ones. You know, like you're thinking you're really cool, like really leaves very quickly when you get in this business. So like don't be afraid to take risks. Like don't be afraid to like try things that you might like, yeah, that's a really terrible shot, like, but just try it. You know, I was really nervous at the beginning, like, oh, I don't know, what if it doesn't turn out okay? Get out of your head, probably will. Try to shoot stories on your own time, especially if you get a job. Say, we have like a couple people that are at WNDU who maybe want to be reporters, but there was an opening at WNDU as a producer, and they really just wanted to be at WNDU, so like they're producing right now, but my one friend in particular is like dying to be a reporter. So like in her own time, after she clocks out, she goes out and shoots stories and just comes back and cuts them and asks for feedback. And like, I always think like she has such a high, like we respect her so much because she's doing it on her own time. You know, she's taking that initiative. So I would say like try to do that as well. Like go out and really like get good at whatever you're trying to do, and don't be afraid to like work for free, because that is kind of a hard part about our business, but it is true. Like you have to intern a lot for free. I used to stink at editing when I graduated college. Like I was just not at the editing level I needed to be for this job, and it would take me so long to put together a story. So after I would like run my stories at like the 5 o'clock news, I would literally dump my clips in a new project folder and recut the same story because I had to get faster. And so like that's an idea, to just keep, repetition is key. Just keep doing whatever it is that you are like your weak spot is until it gets good. Ask for feedback. That's a really big one. Sometimes it's hard, right, to ask for feedback. Like, I feel like in this business, everything is so, like, personal. Like, you invested all your time. Like, you wrote it, you shot it. Like, if they're like, oh, this sucks, it's like, oh, my God, I suck, right? Like, you're just so invested in a piece. But don't be afraid to, like, ask for feedback, because this is really, like, where you're going to refine your skills. I, like, look back and watch some of my stories from the beginning. I was so terrible as a reporter when I started. I would have the same inflection every time I started a sentence. It was literally the same sentence over and over. And so I like look back now and I'm like, why didn't know? Like, and finally someone had told me like, you should just kind of have a conversation when you're doing your tracking, which is what you call when you do like you're part of the story, you know? And I was like, wow, I'm like, oh, I don't think it's really that big of a deal, but I guess I'll change it. And now I look back like, I cannot, like, what if no one had told me? Like, I was just so terrible and I didn't even realize it. So make sure you ask for feedback. I wrote down, learn every aspect of the business. Now, like, if you're really interested in being like a meteorologist, like maybe you don't need to know about how to be like a reporter, like a news reporter or something, and vice versa. But I think it's really important, like as reporters, I have tried to spend an afternoon like talking to our directors so I understand what they do. Because in crunch time, like directors are the ones that are like keying up, you know, certain, like they key up our stops that are about to play, or they change the backgrounds. Like there's a lot going on there. And so if something like crashes in the show and I just yell at them like, what are you doing? You have nothing else to do but sit back there and hit play. You know, it's nice, like I understand, like, okay, mistakes happen, there's a lot going on, there's breaking news. And I think it's also important, as I've talked about before, like you want to be really marketable. So in some of our shows, because we're such a small enough station, I've been able to produce and anchor the same show. So I've been able to like go out and shoot a story, put it in our show as a reporter, then anchor it, and then like write all the stuff surrounding it. So I've been able to like produce, report, and anchor the same show. And I think that makes me like, you know, pretty marketable, right? So don't be afraid to like learn, even if you're not interested, you know, nod and smile, like be a team player, just get to know what they do so it's a little bit nicer. And network, we talk about this so much, but it really is so important to network, get your name out there, and especially like while you guys are still in college, I feel like it's less creepy if you like email someone and they're like, hey, like I'm really interested in learning about this, can I come by? Then it probably would be like if I did or you did, like, hey, can I come by your station? Like that'd be kind of weird. So I feel like you have the time to like do it, and I definitely would do it. And seriously, like, let me help you. If there's something that you're like, I'm trying to find a job, like if, I know you're interested in TV, but if there's something that you are, hit me up, because I might, have people. And that's how it works, right? Like, in a brief conversation, you show your personality and like, hey, we really click. And then it's like, hey, you would be so great. I have a friend who works here. That's how it happens. It really is. Be invested in your community. This is a huge one. A lot of people get into this business, I think, for the wrong reasons sometimes. They want to be famous, or they want to be on camera, or, get a clothing contract, which I get those are all maybe nice things, but I really think the biggest part about this job that keeps me going in the long days when I only have Sundays off in football season, when I just feel like I have lost every part of my life and I have nothing, I can't go home. Like I went like 6 months before I was able to go home. I missed the birthdays and the holidays and the life events. I think the biggest thing that keeps me going is really remember like I'm making an impact. There aren't a lot of jobs that you literally leave and you're like, wow, I made a difference. Like you meet people in some of the most vulnerable moments, like right after something terrible has happened and they are talking to you. And like that's an honor, Like I don't know, I'm not a really emotional person per se. Like I don't cry a lot and like cry in the notebook. I know I'm heartless. So I'm not like a big emotional person, but like I really like that gets to me when someone just says like thank you for listening. Like thank you for just giving me a platform. Like wow. Every day I'm like, okay, I made a difference. Whether like today I did a story about a business in Elkhart that's been around for 100 years in this family. They've owned the building for 100 years. Like, is that going to change someone's life today? Probably not. You're not going to, like, no one was almost going to die, now they're not access on my story. But, like, you made a difference for that family, right? Like, they're like, think it's the best thing ever. Their business was on TV. And, like, sometimes it's a little stuff. So be invested in your community, because you have to remember to translate to your audience, a lot of the people in your market, no matter where you are, have been there for, like, a lifetime. So even though you don't care about this city council meeting happening on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, that you're just like, this is the worst, there are people that meeting who like, this is all they've been talking about for weeks. And like, they're so invested. Like, this is their community. This is like where they have raised their children. And so you have to remember like, if you can get invested in that community, you'll understand that more. For me, like I volunteer at the Ronald McDonald House downtown. And like, that's just been a great way to like, actually get to know my community, not just talk about it. Because When do you feel like it was so phony if I was like, South Bend is like the greatest, like everyone loves South Bend, but it's like, do you ever spend your weekends here, Lindsay? Like, do you ever know South Bend? It's like you want to get invested, you want to spend time in your community, because that's really important. I wrote watch, read, and learn as much as you can, because for me, like, I'm a video person, I don't like read a lot, but I love to watch videos just to see what other people are doing. Like, even if you're interested in marketing, like, see what other campaigns are doing. If you're interested in like graphic design, see what other people are doing. I think that's like how you learn, is just by not copying, but like getting some inspo, right? Like, how can I challenge myself? How can I be better? For me, it was so creepy in college. I would like hop on the elliptical at my gym and I'd watch other people's reels for like an hour while I was on elliptical, just to see like, okay, what are other people doing my age? Like what kind of stand-ups could I start doing? Like, it might sound creepy, but like, hey, I learned a lot, And I was like, oh, I love her reel. Like, this is what I want to do. So try to like absorb like as much as you can, because I think that's super important. These are just a few things. I want to make sure I keep your questions out to you. These are just a few things like I wish I knew. I wish I knew about the lifestyle a little bit more. And I try to be real with you guys. Like, it's hard. Like, the hours are hard. It sounds like nothing to like have Wednesday, Thursday weekends. But like when you're in a town that you moved to, like me, and you didn't know anybody, and then you're just shown on like a Wednesday and a Thursday and your parents can't come up and visit you, like that sucks, right? The one thing I would have liked to have known is that other reporters at other stations, people think like the other stations in your market, like you don't talk to, like they're competition. Like, actually, no, we're all really close friends. So actually, like, we talk to all the reporters at SBT, and so the people that have the same hours, the same schedule, you'll probably end up hanging out with, and you see them at the same crime scenes, like everything that you're at. If you're a news reporter, you and a bunch of police officers are at too. So you'll get to know a lot of people. But I wish I knew a little bit more about the lifestyle. Also, just because, hey, we're all girls here, like, besides you. But, like, I mean, for me, like, relationships were really important. So I just got married, like, almost a year ago. And so, yeah, I think so. So I married my college sweetheart, and when I was looking for jobs, it's basically, like, whoever gets the job first, like, we're going to go. And so he's a strength and conditioning coach for, like, men's basketball in the, like, college world. So we always joke, like, why couldn't one of us, like, been a teacher and accountant? Like, there's one everywhere, right? Like, these are two hard jobs to, like, network for. So we were really, like, worried about how we were going to make this work. So I took the job, and then once we got married, he moved up here, and then 3 weeks later, he left for 2 months to go to Milwaukee to be with Marquette basketball. And so, like, you know, it wasn't ideal, but, like, we did what we had to do, and now he's a director of a gym down here, so, like, it worked out really well. But I think that's important just to say, like, this is a hard lifestyle, and you want to find a partner, like, if you are wanting to, like, settle down anytime soon or later in life, because the schedule is kind of the same, like, I would find someone who really is understanding of that, because, like, never once have I, like, come home at, like, 5 o'clock, like, some people my age, and, like, prepared this, like, spread of dinner, like, hello, welcome home, here's your meal. Like, that's just not ever going to be our marriage, you know? Like, it's, like, there's probably leftover somewhere in the fridge, like, help yourself. You know, it's just, that's our relationship. So I would really just say, if you are thinking about the family life thing, it's just something to, like, keep track of. But there are ways to do it, and I don't want you to think that there aren't, because my co-anchor, Mo, like, she was a working mom until she retired 2 weeks ago, and she had 3 boys, and, like, she made it work. So, like, people always say to choose between, like, career and family, and I really don't think that's the case. So just a little bit of advice from me is, like, find someone who's going to be understanding, and I think that's going to stick out to you a lot more than finding, like, a loser who doesn't get it, right? Okay, so I wanted to put you write a lot, because every job at a news station involves writing, and it's a ton. It's like producers write 60 stories a day. I write all my own teases, tosses to break, weather tosses. We have to write a web story for every feature story we do, so we do write a lot. I thought that was important because I didn't really think about that. I don't know, maybe that's an obvious thing for you guys and I just didn't think about it. But that was something I really wanted to know. Also the moving. So I signed a 3-year contract, but when I was interning in Indy, there was a girl who had moved, I'm gonna make sure I get this right. It was like 6 times in 7 years. So like that to me is not ideal. I hope I don't have to end up doing that, and I think that's not the case. But if you are like really trying to climb up really fast, that could be the case for you. Like if you're trying to move around a lot. But also like if you're young, like maybe it's the time to do it. It's all your opinion. But again, there's always exceptions to this. We have a reporter who's from Goshen, Indiana. I'm not sure if you guys know where Goshen is. It's like an hour south from here. Maybe is that like an hour from here? Maybe. Yeah. Okay, so she's from there, born and raised, and like she drives up here. I mean, it's an hour commute. But, like she still gets to work, and she doesn't end up. She doesn't want to leave it at any point. She like loves it. She went to Goshen College. She grew up in Goshen, and she found her job here, and she loves WNDU. So it's like that's not always the case. If you find the station you want to be at, like work your way up within the station, which is what my co-anchor Mo did. She started as a radio DJ and then got recruited to come downstairs. We used to have a radio station upstairs. She got recruited to come downstairs. She married her co-DJ, Jim. So like 30 years later, they're still married. And was like a noon anchor and then reporter and she's done like every position, and then she was a primetime anchor for 30 years. So I mean, it's not like there is no set formula on how to be successful in this business, which is really the biggest takeaway. I'm like really weird with social media. I don't love it, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have the tendency to like tweet all of my funny thoughts, probably because I don't have many of them, but like I just think for the most part, social media is really frustrating. And 80% of our market lives on Facebook. Think about Sally, a middle-aged woman who like probably isn't working. Like I feel like most of them are on Facebook during the day, right? Like a lot of people are on Facebook. So there's a tendency when we get to a crime scene, as soon as we talk to someone who's in like charge, like an officer or someone, we have to start Facebook Living. And sometimes you literally have like 6 facts. This is what happened, this is who it was, this is their current condition, traffic is closed, that's it. And you have to talk for like at least 8 minutes on a Facebook Live. There's only so many ways you can say, this is what's going on. And that I hate, because then there's always those losers commenting that are like, oh my gosh, this girl is like not saying anything new. And you're like, yes, because I only know like 6 things. Like there's that frustration there. But there is a big push for social media in our business. So every day our news director will send out like the scores of everyone in our market who's on air. They rank like their social media engagement. So we're always like, trying to be the best. We're always trying to put up the funniest posts. And I have a hard time, I just feel like it's very like self-promoting. Like, look, I'm drinking coffee. Like, look, I went to the bathroom. Like, I don't like that. I'm not like an instant social media person, so I struggle with that. But that is a huge part of our business is Facebook. So if you like Facebook, it's great. I have a harder time with that. Like, Twitter is more my thing. I don't know, I like it a little bit better. And the last thing really is no one has a set path in this industry. When I was in college, like there was just a lot of people who had said, oh, like if you want to be an anchor, you'll start to anchor in your like early 30s, and then maybe you'll end up somewhere good like by 35. And like that's not at all how it happened for me. I literally started anchoring within 3 months of being at my first station. Like no one said that was possible. I think that's just how it is. Like, no one has a set path. And I just, like, want to reiterate that because I think you have to put your mind over matter here, right? Like, if you're going to work for it, like, you'll get it. There's just so many scenarios, like, going on and on. Like, he just left, but he's a sports director in Lexington, Kentucky, just followed UK basketball all season long. He was an editor. So if you know what an editor is, like, they don't even leave the station ever. Literally, someone goes out and shoots all the footage, and then they bring it back, and they just, like, put it together for their highlights, right? His name was Eli. Eli literally was just an editor for, like, a year and a half, and he, like, liked sports. Like, he was, like, knowledgeable, like, go team go, just didn't have a big passion for it. This one day, our news, I think it was, like, the number 2 guy, it's like our news director must have been out of town or something, like, the number 2 guy got sick, and he just randomly was like, oh, here, I'll talk about it, like, I cut the highlights, I know. And he, like, goes on air and, like, does this elaborate, like, sports cast, and we're all like, Eli, like, how on earth did you, like, we didn't know this about you, right? And so literally after that guy had, like, moved on, Eli was put as the number 1 sports guy and, like, covered Notre Dame women's basketball, who, like, won a national championship. So all of a sudden, he went from being an editor to, like, oh yeah, I just covered a national champion team all season long, and I was at every game, whatever. And now he's in Lexington covering, like, all these incredible teams, UK especially. And, like, it all started from him being an editor. Like, you never know when your moment's going to happen. You never know how it's going to work. And so just don't let people say, oh, you're never going to get there unless X amount of months or whatever, because it's not like that. Okay, the last thing, this goes on my last point. So Diane Sawyer started out as a weather forecaster. Anderson Cooper was a fact checker. He made his own position at this, like, random station. He called them and was like, can I just do, like, some random job here to get my foot in the door? And they're like, sure. And then Sage Steele, who's a nightly anchor at ESPN, started as a news producer at WSDT. And so all of these people, like, all that to say is, like, none of these people were an anchor in their first job. A lot of these people were stuff that they never did again. And that's okay. If you just get your foot in the door, say you really want to go back to Australia, and, like, just get your foot in the door, see what happens. I don't think it has to be your dream job right away. And don't let people tell you, like, oh, this is the path they're going to take, because it's just totally different. And I wish I would have listened to that a little bit more, because this field is very unpredictable, and it's huge. There's an NBC, it's called NBC, I don't know if it's, like, NBC Media or something like that. But it's like the NBC where they hire out of. It'd be a good website for you guys to know as you're applying for jobs. But I mean, there's jobs for, like, hosts for HGTV, and you can be a PR person for a children's museum in Indy. Like, one of my friends ended up doing that. We graduated with the same major. Like, it's not like you have to do this forever, and it's a really big field. So in a couple of years, if I want to, like, settle down and get more of a 9-to-5, like, I'd go into PR, or kind of take more of that route, or maybe just do freelance kind of stuff, or, it's just, there's a lot of options. So don't just think that you have this one set path, which is really important. So I have some of your questions here, and I want to just make sure I answered them, because you guys had some really great questions. And the first one was, like, one of my favorites. It was, how do you handle emotional, sensitive topics while maintaining professionalism? This is such a good question because it's really hard. I kind of was thinking, like, a scenario that would probably translate best. One would just be, I showed up at a crime scene where someone had been shot in the middle of the road, and they covered the body up until the feet, like the shoes. So the family members started arriving, and they knew who it was because they could tell, usually you can tell by shoes. And so I'm supposed to go live, and there's someone screaming bloody murder, like, just mourning, like they're realizing it's, their dad. And I just told my producer, like, I'm not going live. I said, I'm not going to have them in the background. I don't want them to have that exposure. And so that was, like, really hard. Like, there are days, like, in that day especially, like, I kept myself together. I locked in. I said, I'm not going to go live. Give me another 10 minutes to move and get set up somewhere else. And then, I cried the whole way home, right? Because you're human. Like, you don't want to just, someone told me once, like, oh, don't worry, like, it'll become easier as you go. It's like, well, I hope that never becomes easy, right? Like, you hope that never is like, oh, someone's dying and someone's grieving, like, all right, what's for lunch? It's like, that should impact you. Like, that's why you do this job, because you care, right? So I always think, like, you try to find that balance between, you want to convey emotion in your stories. You want to tell someone, like, in my next live hit, I said, it's been a really hard scene out here. I think it was, like, Josh. Like, Josh, it's been a really hard scene out here. Like, I just witnessed someone grieving, believed to be a family member. It's, you can just feel how sad they are, even from saying, you want to convey that. And you don't want to exploit someone's pain. You don't want to be like, all right, take a look behind me, there's people crying in the street. Like, you don't want to exploit people. You have to find that, like, balance. But I think you try to lock in, and then you try to, when you get home, then you process it. When you're not on the air, you try to just process it. And we have a lot of great resources of people who are, like, available around the station to, like, talk through things like that. There was a horrible 3-week stretch in our area back in, you probably know, back in the fall. There was like a school bus. There were 3 kids who were killed by the school bus. There were just all these tragedies. And for 3 weeks, our morning reporter was literally breaking news from people who had died. It was horrible. And so our news director was like, I'm going to give you a couple days off. I'm going to have you call this woman and just chat through, like, it was like a, just some kind of resource, I guess. And so we have people there to, like, talk to. And I think you have to be aware when you're like, wow, I'm struggling. Or if we've worked, like, Josh, one of our anchors, had worked like 5 days straight, which I know was a normal work week, but it was like 16-hour days. It was just too much covering the story. And so our news director was like, can you take a day off and, like, debrief, don't answer your phone, because we all are given a work cell phone. I guess that's another perk. We all have a work cell phone. So she was like, turn your phone off, like, give it to me. She's like, I don't want you messing with it, just decompress. So I think a good news director, a good manager will know, okay, that was a really hard scene, you know, hope they'll be able to kind of take a break. This says, does your job require travel, or was that for fun? Did any of you stalk my social media and knew that I travel a lot? Yeah? Yeah, so I do travel a lot. I love to travel. So I've been to like 18 countries and like 5 continents, which is awesome. But I don't get to travel like at all for this job. We do travel as in like day trips, you know, around like Michiana, but I don't get to travel more. Really, our sports people get to travel the most. So I covered Notre Dame all season long. Because I was an anchor, they wouldn't let me take the day off, like to fly down to Jerry World, to Dallas to cover the playoffs. So I didn't even get to travel for that, which was like so depressing because there's no like, you know, Big Ten championship. So it was like, this was like the culminating moment. It was really heartbreaking. But, so no, I don't get to travel a ton. But, so in Indy, our sister station, which is just like, I think it's market like 30 or something, when the royal wedding happened, like all of their anchors were like in England. So like, it's not that like when you're in local news you can't travel. Like, yeah, like they did a live broadcast from England. When I was there, I was an intern, so I knew they weren't going to take me, but it was when the Pyongyang Olympics happened. So like 2 of our sports people like went to Pyongyang, and I helped them pack their bags. You know, you're like, I'm an intern, this stinks. So there are a lot of opportunities to travel and like travel far. And I think that's like the coolest part of this business is like you can always do big things. I'm following this story right now about like a murder from last summer, and the guy has been sentenced up in like Minnesota. So like I have the potential to like drive 10 hours to the middle of nowhere in Minnesota. So I know that makes you jealous, but so that's kind of my only thing right now. But I wish, so I can travel more. Hopefully like I get to a position where I can go like that. How did you become interested in sports media? I've always been a sports girl. I used to play for a nationally ranked soccer team. So I had committed to play soccer, and then I blew up my knee after I committed to play D1. So I was trying to think like, okay, what's the next best thing to like be on the field? And it was either I could, you know, do all the yelling and like be a coach, but I didn't want to do that, or I could be getting yelled at like a referee, and I didn't want to do that. So I thought, okay, sideline reporter is like the next best thing. So I just kind of loved it. And it's so different doing sports and news. Like sports is kind of always happy, right? And news is kind of like depressing. You know, like the first, you guys heard this phrase, like if it bleeds, it leads. So like the first 5 minutes is like, oh my gosh, yesterday we had this 6th grader come in for like a shadow, and our meteorologist was like, oh, let's pull up like the first 5 minutes of the broadcast, and she was reading off, and it was like missing body found, babies beaten in Indianapolis with bats, stabbing happening, a shooting, and we were like, oh hey, like moving on to weather, you know, it's depressing. So I kind of like the change of pace. Right now that's kind of getting me through because I'm itching to get back to sports. But I love sports. I'm just a sports junkie, so I think it just always has been in my blood to like do something. And then marrying someone who's like equally as obsessed with sports is just kind of a thing. Is your schedule set, or are you on call for breaking news? I think I answered that one. And the casting process for being an anchor. So I'm not sure if this is true, but when I was asked to become a primetime anchor at the 4, I was told that all of the anchor moves are decided by like a corporate level, because you want to try to get away from like people pleasing or like trying to be buddy with your news director to like get a promotion. They try to keep it very objective, just based on ratings and how good you are and that kind of thing. So I think the casting process is like all above my news director. It's no one like in the station. It's just based on like them watching you and seeing. But I don't really know if that's true or not. I guess I should probably figure that out, right? Because that's what I do. But I think it's all just kind of based on your talent and I think the opening as well. So there's a lot of positions like right now at our station that are open or opening. So if you're interested in being a reporter, I would definitely think about applying because it's a great station to work for. But there are like a lot of people who are already at WNDU who maybe got a position like as a director and wants to be a producer, and so they're applying in that kind of way. So I think in that sense you could probably be like, hey, like you know me, you know I'm a good worker, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, so I hope those answer some of your questions and just gave you an overview. There's so much in this business to like talk about. So I hope I was able to like actually think about things you like wanted to know. Is there any other topics that you want like further clarification or questions or random something about my life? I don't know, anything I can like help you guys with? Because I'm super excited to get to watch you guys do your thing. So I literally have been stalking you for a week, like watching you guys, so I'm super excited. All right, I don't think so. Yeah.
When did you like start in college? Like sophomore, junior, like
With like TV stuff?
yeah.
So probably, it's a great question. Probably my sophomore year is when I started to really get into it. So I started that channel, Raven Watch is what it was called, that sports channel. And it was like a year of me just trying to get funding before I ever was in front of the camera. So I would say I really was only like my junior and senior year. I interned the summer between my junior and senior year, and then I interned the fall of my senior year. So I interned like back to back. Which was hard interning as being a student, as I'm sure you guys all know, like we're not like you're insanely busy, right? Mm-hmm. So that was really hard. I would get out of class at 3 and I would drive an hour to Indy and then I'd intern till midnight. And I'd drive an hour home and then be at class at 8 a.m., which just was terrible. So it was really, really hard. I wouldn't like say that's how, again, it's not always how it is. If you guys did intern like WNDU, I know we don't do internships, I wish we could. But like I think SMC-TV, they all have internships, that would be an easy commute. But yeah, I think it was mostly my junior year that I started getting into it. I always felt like so competitive. Maybe you feel like this too. So like all the state school kids, you know, like for me, like Ball State was really close, and they have this huge broadcasting program because David Letterman's from there, and they like have all their like shiny red blazers and all this like amazing equipment and studios. And I was always like, oh, I can never compete with those kids, because you just think like, oh, that's like they're so much better than me, you know. That really is not true, because I saw one of those girls, like now she's working at a college to do like random sports videos. I don't think I need to be back on if you.
That's it.
So, just because you go to like a smaller school does not mean you can't compete, because in my experience, it almost felt like all the kids who were in bigger schools, like they kind of got handed it, right? Like they had, like everything was mapped out for them. Like, oh, you're a freshman year, you take this. And like I had to kind of start from scratch and like launch things and trial and error. That's exactly what you guys are doing with this new show, and like the Morning Bell show. Like you're just, it's trial and error, like you don't know until you do it, right? And I think that is what's so marketable, is you have to be able to sell that. Like you go to an employer and say, yeah, like we were learning this and I did this on my own and I started this segment, and like that is more impressive than like, oh yeah, I went through the Ohio State broadcasting program. Like what'd you do? Oh, just every year you know, it's like you had to really go for it. So do not think that because you're at like a smaller school than like a huge state school, that puts you behind. That's not the case. Seriously. If people think that this job is like all glamorous, I just laugh, because we're all one-man bands and then Jays. So like we only have one guy at our station who has a photographer, but it's all of us. And so we have our camera bag, which is about 30 pounds, and then our tripod was like 20. So like you ever think any of those girls in the like those nice dresses you see in like reporters are wearing nice shoes? No, all of them like wear Converse or like sneakers and like a nice dress, because we're all on our own. So like in 80-degree weather, like we're carrying all our own gear and we're sweating, and yeah, it's a free-for-all on the Notre Dame press conference. After the game, like they bring out players like very sporadically, and so there's like all these rows of chairs, and like I literally will just be like hopping over chairs, like I'm on top of chairs and you're putting mics down, and it's just really chaotic. It's never glamorous. I'm like one of the only girls that shoots video on Notre Dame sideline games, and those cameras are about 80 pounds that are on your shoulder for 4 hours. Like that's just it's you're like you can't even move your body on like Sunday or Monday. So that's really hard. So I always laugh. Everyone's like, oh, you're Notre Dame's hype, like that's so glamorous. Like, oh yeah, that's amazing. No, it's not. Like, it's just you're sweating and you're changing clothes and you're sprinting around the stadium, and yeah. So yeah, you know what it's.
I had to hold some of those cameras while, because they shot 4 cameras at a time, and they were all shoulder mount ones.
Yeah.
And like after each like camera operator would like, once they finished, it was like intern's job to like either like go and take it from them if they're in an uncomfortable position or something. So there's like a few days where I'd be standing here like this, like holding
like this is
camera,
awesome.
I'm like, this is heavy. Like,
yeah.
And then you like put it up for them. Yeah.
Well, and too, like, I know we don't do internships, so if you guys would ever want to just, like, come to the station, like, get a tour of things, and if there's people there that you would be interested in, like, getting to know more about their position, we do that a lot. So you guys are welcome anytime. It doesn't need to be during class. You guys can come individually, all together, whatever. But it's just so helpful, like, talk to someone who's doing your job, you know, and, like, I remember when I was, like, interning, one of the guys, I would just ask every day about, like, his life. Like, so what does it like to have kids? He had kids at the time. It's like, what does it like to have kids and be married and, like, do this job? Like, things, like, you just couldn't ask someone that you, like, randomly met, like, you know, like, in, I don't know, in some, like, formal setting. So it is always nice to get that exposure. So you guys are always welcome, even if it's not, like, it doesn't need to be with me. This is, like, we're all very open about that. Like, there's a graphics department, we've got weather and directing and promotions and, news director, assignment editor, and we have all kinds of positions at a news station. So if there's anything you guys need, let me help you.
Yeah, and I can share your contact information
Yeah.
and that, because I know that some of them were on spring break at the high school, and some of my students called up different stations and were doing tours at different
Yes.
ones just because now they were available to
time.
do it, because it's a little tricky to kind of
Yeah,
get a school bus and go, and so they were just kind of doing it on their own. So yeah, it's
For
definitely
sure.
great to walk through the studio and
yeah.
meet people.
And see it. Plus, it's like so funny. You know, we have our IFB where people are talking. So like, it's always kind of funny. Like you just, it's just when you're finally doing it for the first time. Like people are yelling behind you. You know, like all the Notre Dame clips. It's like nothing can really prepare you for that moment. So it's like sometimes you got to just do it. Like in whatever job you're in, you got to just do it. There's like I remember before my first live hit, our sports crew like brought me into a room and I had my we had a teleprompter queued up, but they're like just read, and I was like okay, and I started and they're like yelling in my ear like all and like going like this behind me just to like, and I was like, what are you guys doing? Like, no, this is how it is. Like you have to just keep focused. And so some of those things like you can try to pretend like you know what's going on, but you just aren't gonna know until you do it. So hopefully if you guys come, we can actually give you a chance to like do some of the stuff. Like when we have that little kid I was telling you about that came in yesterday for like to be a meteorologist. We actually like queued up the green screen and like showed him how you cue things and how you walk, and so some of it's just easier for you guys to like do. So let us know if we can help you that in that way. So.